Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
bringing you and some other two pair of eyes sitting there on your desk,
Hello, Miss Rosie.
bringing you
Rosie.
this week's Ascended World. Good morning, Sandy. So, yeah, we've gotten, so like last week, it started, it's funny because we had so many things going on. So it's funny that this topic sort of just rolled out of a suggestion last week in the middle of our discussion that one of our viewers had said, well, what about, I feel so scattered. Can you talk about feeling scattered?
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, we tabled it. And then what we're, texting this week, and it's like, well, that scattered thing is probably a good topic.
Right. I mean, it's like, is it really scattered, or is it just something we're not accustomed to?
Yes.
Which I always look at, they talk about multitasking, and it means, that you do everything half-ass and nothing really well. Because
Well,
you
and they've
don't
shown that actually that's what it is. Yeah, that's what happened.
exactly. And so whether it's staying in observation means that you aren't fully invested in things like you used to be, and you feel like it's scattered.
Yeah. Well, and that is true, because when we stay in this world and not of it, right?
Right.
And stuff just flows past you or through you all the time.
Right.
So, it was funny. I had this thing that was going on this weekend where I felt like something big was passing through. And I didn't
Mhm.
even realize it until meditation this morning, right? Because I was so flowing with it.
You
Rosie,
watch yourself.
what do you got to say about that, Rosie? Look at those eyes. Good morning, Yasmin. But yeah, so I didn't even realize that till I was in meditation this morning. I was sitting, and I was like, I had just, I don't even remember what my intention was. My creation had to do with, well, I was just setting up the week for being a bang up,
Right.
exciting, prosperous, productive week, blah, 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 blah. That was fun and enjoyable, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I went out there, and so it reminds, then I flashed back to, and I hadn't even really been thinking about our intention for today, because a lot of times I'll go in and be like, okay, and then whatever we need to talk about, let it come to the surface, which I then sort of adjusted because I realized I was looking into the same thing that we're going to be talking about, right?
Right.
And I remembered this dream that I had. I think it was like Friday night, maybe Friday, maybe Thursday. And in the dream, I was trying to get something to you because of the program we have coming out, right?
Right.
And which is next week. Shameless
Yes.
plug.
Yes, it is next week.
Sign up this week. It's going to be fabulous. It is fabulous. So anyway, so I was trying to get something to you, and it was like a Where's Waldo? Like it was crazy in the dream. Like I was in this crowd of all these people, and it was really bright and festival like and everything else. And it was very distracting, right?
Mhm.
And it was like, no, I've got to get this to Sarah. And I was like, we've got to get this out. We've got to do this. And so, but then it was like, okay, but then this came in front of me, and I was like, okay, I can deal with this. Right. And then it
Right.
was like, okay, well, I'm still proceeding on, albeit slowly, because I'm getting through this crowd. And then I get in a car and I'm driving, and then there's traffic. And then it seems like there's like a hot air balloon festival in front of me. It was like all this stuff. And then I'm like, and it was all colorful, and it was all fabulous and saturated and, and enjoyable. And then at the same time, there's a part of me going, I've got to get this to Sarah. I got to get this to Sarah.
Right.
And so then I saw at one point, I was just getting so frustrated because I'm like, I just got to get there.
Mhm.
And I saw this big roller coaster, and I was like, oh, I could just get on the roller coaster because it goes over everybody and I could just get there. And then I was like, but then when I get to the other side, what if it's not at the end point? And then I have to find another way to get there. And at least I have a car. And then I realized, like, and it was funny because I didn't really think, I thought a little bit about the dream, because I remember talking to my husband about it on our walk. And I said, obviously it's me feeling like there's so many things that are coming up, and it's like none of them feel like they're distractions. They all feel so saturated in the moment, right?
Right.
But then
Right.
there's a part of me that's like, and the bigger perspective, from the bigger perspective, oh, we've got to get this done. This is, like we've got this going on, and you've got to like, it's just like, okay,
Well, and then somewhere in there, it's like, where do you find time to make what you find important, like your self-care and nourishment, a priority when
right,
there's just, it seems like billions of other things going on.
yeah, and more so than ever before.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, it's like we've gone into not just fast forward mode, but like, like warp speed. I mean,
Right. Right.
warp 10. We're about there.
Right.
But yeah, Sandy said, yes, sir, it's something we're not accustomed to. We're more aware of everything going on around us. Yeah, I think that's part of it too. I do feel like that it's part of us. Good morning, Gloria. I think it's part of us seeing and being aware of, in a larger expanded consciousness, the details of so many more things, right? And the mind goes bonkers because the mind's like, well, do I have to manage this? Like, what do I have to watch it? Like, what do I have to do?
What's my responsibility in this?
Exactly. Like, oh, this could be fun candy, but like, and then so there's this constant friction because we're like adjusting into a completely different state of being, right? A
Right.
state of
Yeah.
consciousness. And I do find that if I don't do meditation at least every day, it gets pulls me off really quick.
Right. I mean, I can tell that my schedule's been off and I am exhausted. I'm exhausted, even though my physical activity is a little bit more, but it's like I'm exhausted from the mental fatigue of being in observation of everything and then and I don't want to use the word judgment, but being listening to my guidance and saying, is that for me? 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 And and
It
and
does
and,
get tiring.
and it's using, those guidance muscles that need some flexing.
Yes. I think that is the exhausting part because then it's
I mean,
like,
it's just like, wow.
yeah. Yeah. I look at the sheer amount of things that got done in the 3D and my 3D reality this weekend, and it's daunting. And except the mind wants to say, but you didn't get this done. But you got these 4 million other things done because you stayed in that flow, and don't sit there and obviously that wasn't supposed to be done. And that's where it's like that really, like you're saying, that it's an adjustment because you're constantly checking it, constantly checking, is it for
Right.
me to do today? Is it for me to do now? Like I had 5 other things to get done that I wanted to get done, even though like we did get a lot done this weekend. And and my mind, and I realized it was my ego at some point that was pushing, right?
Right.
And
Right.
my body was physically exhausted last night. And
Well,
I
at some point, I made a shift from making to-do lists to making done lists, to
Mhm,
where I listed everything that I had completed. So it becomes a sense of accomplishment versus look at what I haven't done.
right.
And
And
that really,
it makes it a big thing because we then get into this place of, right, you get stuck in the what hasn't been done, right?
exactly. And it just, what you have accomplished just gets totally lost.
Yeah.
Because at least the way I used to make to-do lists is, it just wasn't possible to accomplish everything I put on there.
I have, and it's funny because I had somebody say to me, somebody I was talking to sometime in the past week said that they're like, oh, well, I'm just sort of throwing my arms up in that. Um, because I find I write myself a list every day. Oh, I know. I know it was somebody I was talking to at the farmer's market this weekend. It was funny. They're like, and they're like, yeah, I put myself. Oh, it was. I was talking to the person who did this herb they have an herb stand, right? And I've been going to them forever, and they, like, and I used to talk to them when I had my own herb nursery and stuff, and so yeah, I was talking to the guy, and I said, I said it was great for me for 5 years, and I got exhausted.
Right.
And the guy's like, yeah, because they've been doing it for like 25. And he says, yeah, because the thing is though, you just get used to the fact that you never get the list done that you
Right.
make every day. And you just say, okay, so what's priority? And I was like, oh, well, that's really a lot of what I work with now anyway, right?
Right.
So anyway, we have a bunch of comments there.
I know,
So
I know.
Andy says, yes, warp speed on steroids. There's no, it's scrolling up.
I have no comfort zone, even though it was just an illusion.
Yeah.
And then asking for guidance for every opportunity presented can be tiring. And Nicole says, I found that being in a state of appreciation helps me not judge or ask, is this for me? I see it so it is for me to appreciate, to forgive my judgments, forgive myself. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten lost in the knots and getting out of it, be finding the wins, by finding the wins. Yeah. Some days the wins are the breaths I get to take.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Exactly.
Right?
Good morning, Ann. But yeah, so it's it is just getting to a place of, so what came up to me, of course, has been my theme for the past week, which is our second course of our series, which is trust, right? It's
Right.
just trusting, just trust. You know, a couple weeks ago, I got this message of, well, you know, you're really going to need to trust. Which, you know, of course, made the ego freak out a little bit.
Like a threat.
Yeah, like, like, well, like, why?
It's like, oh, you're really going to need to trust.
That's really what it was like. That was the feeling I got, was like, okay, well, really, you know, you're really going to need to trust, like,
Right.
it was that feeling of, yeah, it's going to be really important for you to trust, was really the guidance I got. Beyond what you are typical, you know, and I'm thinking, wow, because I think, you know, I thought I was there, right? But I feel like you know, thinking is always the key to the ego.
Right.
So, and I feel like part of this overabundance of things and the chaos and everything speeding up, feeling like it's speeding up like exponentially in the 3D, is to really push us past the point of no return, past the point of being able, because at some point when you get too much, you just throw it all up in the air. You just say, screw it, I can't do it.
Right. And you hit that, it's almost like you hit that mental cruise control where it's the bare basics of just keeping you afloat, so to speak. And you let everything else go. And that's a really good place to be, actually.
It is. And we get to different levels of that. It's like we get to a plateau where it's like, oh yeah, I got this. I'm flowing with it. It's coming, it's passing through, blah, blah, blah. And then we sort of ramp it up again.
Right. Well, you get your stamina back.
That's
A little bit.
That's right. And so, you know, and then really the trust part is knowing that you don't have to manage everything. You don't have to control everything, even though we think we do. And all the things that are coming up right now are things that pretty much are you. I mean, here's the thing. It was funny because there were 50 things to do, right? Yesterday. And I was like, oh, I'm got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And in my head, I'm thinking I had to do all of it. And then at some point it was like, my husband's like, well, I'm going to do this. And then my daughter goes, I'm going to do this. And my other daughter said, I'm going to do this. And was like, oh, that just took 3 major things off of my plate.
Right. Right.
And I still had 300 things to do, but you know, it was like, but
you were talking about how, you were faced with the guidance that you were really going to need to focus on trust and allowing that. Mine's been the worthiness, and it's almost been that same thing, like, oh yeah, you're going to really need to feel worthy.
as we move into that first course of worthiness, another shameless plug.
Right. But I feel like they're all that way.
Yeah.
It's like those are the things that are coming up that are critical at this point.
Absolutely. Because those are the things that help us to stay in that flow, right? To say, you know what, this is my creation, self-responsibility, my creation.
Right.
B, I can change it at will because I'm worthy to, right?
Right.
I can trust it all comes together because I know how to do my endpoint creation kind of thing, right?
And by listening to guidance.
Right. Right. Over the little chatter of the ego. and the
Right.
shadow, right? The shadow, like you can't keep up with this, blah, 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 blah. Let's see, how many of the topics have we hit now? 5?
Right. I think we're missing
Self-love and
forgiveness.
forgiveness.
Right, which is the overarching over all of that, which then just all supports the self-love, which just ushers you to the next place.
Right. And this is why, in a nutshell, not that we planned this because we did not,
Yeah,
but
we do.
this is how those 7 topics for this program that we're rolling out, why they floated up to the top is really important because they're all interconnected in dealing with this stuff at such an accelerated pace. And to have all of these things in place so that I really feel like so here's the thing, many are um sitting back on their laurels a little bit right now because they feel like things are going back to normal, right? And so then what happens is then they sort of let up some slack on themselves and they're like, okay, I can sort of fall back into some old habits. I can
Right,
allow stuff, but that's not the case at all.
right. It's like, oh, I made it over this hump, so now I can take a breath and let these habits catch up to me.
Right. And yet that was only a foothill
Right, right,
for what's
right.
to come. And I'm not saying that with any warning, or it's not like a warning or anything. It's just we are on an accelerated path of exponential shifting, right?
Right.
And so what we've gone through in the past year is just the foothills of what's coming, is my understanding collectively.
Yeah. Sandy
And
says, I love that we don't have to manage or control. Whatever I, Whenever I stay unattached to outcomes or expectations, things flow with such ease. I remind myself that I am creator and I create my reality in every moment. So there's really nothing to fear or try to control. Right.
exactly,
Exactly. Exactly.
exactly. And so it becomes, it can, if we allow it to, it can be breathless. But the funny part is most of the time, you know, um most of the time I don't feel that way, but then it's almost like you're floating along on that roller coaster over everything else, and then all of a sudden, or not even roller coaster, I'm going to say like the Skyway, the sky tram that I took up to
Sandy.
Sandia Mountain when I
Mhm.
was in Albuquerque the other weekend, because it
Right.
just goes over everything. You just go up, it's like I'm going to
Right.
say,
I think what happens is when we get that feeling of being scattered is when our tram has dipped down at the treetops and
well,
we're
or we start projecting, because really think about it. What can happen? So, we were joking about this when we were on that tram, right? It's like the third longest single one in the world, and it's the biggest one in the United States. Anyway, and it's gorgeous, like gorgeous. The view is incredible going up the mountain. Of course, the guy who's like, running the thing, he's, talking to us and he's like, oh, well, this is our highest point. And he goes, this is called 7 seconds. And everybody gets quiet for a minute. He's like, yeah. And he goes, and usually everybody gets quiet or less. And I actually laughed, right? Because I knew exactly, like, he's just like, because that's how enough people are listening to me. It's like, yeah, 7 seconds to hit the ground if this thing fell off anything.
right.
And that's where the mind goes, oh, wow. Well, what would happen? And blah, 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 blah. But and it's funny because I don't really think that anymore, but I can see the habit of the mind saying, wanting to do that, right? Wanting to go and explore in that. And like the guy was saying, a lot of people get a little panicked by that. And I said, well, and the thing is, that's the whole thing. When we start to float above and we just can, we commit ourselves to that expanded consciousness through everything.
Mhm. Right.
It's only when we do want to drop down that 7 seconds into that thing,
Yeah,
right?
it's like we tend to shrink back. We shrink our perspective back to where we lose that expansion and that observation and objectivity of seeing how everything fits into that bigger perspective. And that's when the scattered starts.
Right, because then you start to try to control, right?
Right.
Now, so there's a difference because it's the energy behind your energy behind everything that's going on, as to whether it's scattered or whether it's flowing, right?
True.
And that's the key. So it's whether your mind is trying to control or whether you're just floating through. There's a big difference, right?
Oh, absolutely. And you can feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, and that's the whole thing. And how you can tell is if you're getting panicked, which is what I had to back off on myself because I was getting a little like, well, I'm pushing myself to get this done and da, da, da. And my body was like, you are just tired. Just sit down.
Right, right.
And you know what? That was plenty and it's fine. It's perfect. Let it be right now, you know? And so our physical bodies are still catching up to that kind of presence too. That's the other thing.
Exactly. Yep.
Because we do have things in our cells and our organs that have the habit of holding on to stuff, right? And if it's passing through so quickly and the body's going,
Wait a minute.
Right, then your body starts feeling tired. I think that's where a lot of the exhaustion's coming too, right? Because your body because I literally at one point I laid down in my bed and my husband was folding laundry and at the edge of the bed and I said, you know, I could just lay here for like an hour. I'm like, but I'm wide awake. Like I'm not emotionally tired. I said, my body just says like, you need to just stop.
Right, right.
And he's like, well, then just lay there. I was like,
Yeah.
but that's
Lori has a good point. Whenever I don't have expectations, I notice everything flows much better, much easier.
right. And thus the importance of that meditation every day, right?
Right.
And allowing the flow because like I said, I find when I do, and of course I cut that out this weekend because I had so many things to do and I could tell the difference by last night. So, I mean, although I will say I did gardening a lot of outside time, so that I sort of consider that
That's
partially meditation
right.
in itself too. But you know, it is the flowing part is when you don't, it's like when you're playing a video game and you get to this part. I don't know. For me, this is like what I always think of. There was a game that I used to play, and I don't even remember what the game was, but it was like there was one point where it sped up so quickly because when you got past a certain point, you were progressing, and things started moving so fast. And if you for 1 second tensed up, like you would die in the game, right?
Right.
And that's what it sort of feels like right now. Is that we're in this part that just sped up because we got past all these levels, right? And now it's like everything's, and if we take our eyes off of the end point, then we sort of fall apart and crash. Then we have to do it again, which yeah, I'm pretty done with doing it again, I think.
Oh, right. I feel like I have shed so many layers to get to where I am that why would I go? I saw something funny on, I'm sure Facebook says that, the light at the end of the tunnel is actually the lights of a hospital and you're being born into another place. And that the reason why you come out crying is because you've forgotten everything you learned and you have to do it again.
That's the truth. That is actually really funny.
And I was like, I can feel that.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you say that, the whole being goes, oh, stop. Yeah. Gloria said it took her a long time to learn that. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and myself as well. And then there's still days when I have those moments, right?
Well, and a lot of times it's triggered by something like, for instance, trust.
Right. Right. And what I said was, I was talking to my husband about that dream. I said, so I'm just going to go back to that dream and a meditation and take the roller coaster and know that I'm going to be where I needed to be at the end. Right.
Make it work. Make it be exactly what you need it to be.
Yeah. Let it be exactly what I want it to be. Actually, it doesn't even need to be a roller coaster. Just that tramway was just fine.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, and what happens is when we get lost in it, because I have had multiple clients now recently that they start to roll, right? They start rolling and stuff because they're doing their meditation, they start doing all this stuff. And then it's like there's no hesitation on how fast things speed up. It just happens like bam.
Right.
It's like I said, it's exponential because it's like, oh, squared, triple, cubed, whatever. It just, that curve just goes like this, right? And so what the first tendency is, and we we tense up and we shut down because then we think we have to control, right?
Mhm.
And the
Right,
key is the more it actually gets accelerated, the more it is for us to relax and to let go.
right.
And yeah, the feeling scattered is judging ourselves, number
Mhm.
one. Number two, allowing others' values, if they judge you for that,
Right.
to be accepted into your own worthiness thing, you know. And so it's just a matter of us really being comfortable in our own space.
And knowing, trusting is all perfect.
Yeah. No matter what gets done and what doesn't get done, blah, blah, blah. Because it's all 3D representation. And as Sandy said, in the illusion, which it is, that
Right.
we that we forget. And literally, like I said, that dream was so Where's Waldo. It was like, oh yeah, I'm looking at a Where's Waldo book. Well, I could just close the book, bam, I'm done anyway, right?
Right. Not participate in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it was so it's a lot of it's funny because one of the experiences we had in Albuquerque, we went to the Petroglyphs National Monument, which is
Mhm.
just an incredible park that has all of these volcanic rock. It's a mountain of volcanic rock by the volcano. And natives from like 600 years ago, 700 years ago, whatever, they had done these petroglyphs on the rocks, right? So we're
Right.
walking the first like half a mile, we're walking, waiting for signs that tell us that the petroglyphs are there. And then finally my daughter looks up, she goes, oh, look, there's, and she's like, oh, we're supposed to be looking for them. And then we start looking for them, right? Looking for the signs, right? And
Right.
then I was like, and to myself, I was like, I don't need to do this. I can just say, show yourself to me and let it sort of be really apparent. And then it was funny how easily then we started seeing all that stuff. But then the funny thing was, it caused us to really calm everything down. And then things just started to flow up, flow up, flow up, and
Right.
come. And it was just a really good experience in that kind of stuff.
What
Um,
what makes me think of when you talk about that story is, I know one of my favorite things when I'm walking the dog or whatever, especially this time of year, because the clover is just so big and lush and tall, and it's like looking for that four-leaf clover, and I'll notice that I'm sitting there going three, 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 and it's like, wait a minute. No matter what my eyes see, I need to say four, 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 four to to create that four-leaf clover for me to find, which, you know, is, I don't believe is my luck depends on that. It's just a novelty, and I don't pick them. I just like to,
right,
like a
right,
little jewel, but it's creating them, and it's like calling them forward instead of sitting there saying three, three,
right,
three.
right.
I want to see the four.
And I've done the same thing. And I used to play with that a lot in my old house because we had a lot of clover in the backyard. And I would just go, all right, show yourself. And I
Right.
would play with that. And I would, every time I did that and let it go, I would literally just walk down, walk, and all of a sudden just look down, and there it was, effortless.
Right.
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 So, um, yeah, it's a matter of how we choose to experience it. Like, we expect certain things, others expect them for us, right? They tell us how we're supposed to do stuff, how we're supposed to, manage things, how we're supposed to control things. And it's funny um how it's just a matter of so many facets to this of letting go, right? Of letting go of other people's valuing of how I choose to exist, right?
Well, other people's expectations,
Right.
other
And I've
people's
also,
beliefs.
again, I've also let go of like, doing well, and I don't want to say this to sound, I let go of doing things for other people over what I'm feeling guided to do. Right.
Right. I've been looking a lot at that. There's when I was had young children, we always talked about the love languages and about how, some people show that they care and appreciate by doing this, whether it's acts of service or, monetary reward, whatever that might be. But since I've changed my thinking, I see it more as that's their place of need, perceived need, and that's how they need to feel, that they feel that hole that they believe they have.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what you were talking about.
Mhm.
Kind of lost my path there.
Well, how many things we do for other people, right?
Right,
That we prioritize over our stuff, our own stuff.
right,
Because why? Because it's that worthiness thing. It's that I have to like I have to help them feel their perceived need. I think that's what you're trying
well,
like that.
or my perceived need, because if I do this for them, then they're going to be thankful, and then they'll make me feel better about myself.
Right.
That's where I was going. Wow, I
Exactly.
got lost in that one.
Yeah. No, I knew you were going there. I got
Right.
it. I got it energetically. Sandy said, "There's many things I don't allow myself to experience in life for several decades. Oh, there were many things for several decades, and now I'm allowing anything that brings me joy. If it doesn't in that moment, first I had to release all judgment." Wait, I'm trying to
And
see if
realize that all choices are okay. Aim for
okay.
joy and allow the experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not based on worthiness, just for the sake of joy. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Just for the sake of joy of being in our bliss, right? And that can feel to the ego, that can feel scattered, right? So then so maybe sometimes that becomes a judgment. I'm scattered. I'm being scattered, right?
Right.
Because then we hear other people say that, oh, you're so scattered, or you're flaky, right? A little flaky,
Discombobulated.
a little
Yeah.
discombobulated. And then we take that judgment on for ourselves. Well, we don't have to take it on for ourselves. We can say, I'm being present. Like we can commit ourselves to being present.
Right. Right.
And it's funny because even yesterday, there were several times where it was like several moments where I was working on something. We were working out in the yard, my husband and I, and my daughter, and it was like, so one of us would start one place and then end up, doing this and then doing this and then doing this and then coming back around, right? But it was like this whole thing, right? And the biggest, and I saw really what was a beautiful, almost a ballet, was just
Right.
seeing how it all came together as we let ourselves simply be guided to these other things, right? Like,
Right. And when you can work together with others and allow it to flow, and you start and someone comes in and then you're over here, and I mean it really is like that symphony.
yes, it's totally a symphony. Because
And
I mean, there was only like once, and the reason I didn't even notice it until when a piece broke, right, for a moment, and then I realized how well everything had flown, because it was just something that, oh, my husband had brought me down a thing of twine because I was tying up the trellises for our cucumber plants, and getting those ready,
uh-huh.
resetting them, whatever. So he brought me down the twine, and then he went back upstairs, and he never gave me like a scissor or something to cut it with. So I'm standing here with the thing of twine, and I'm like,
Let's make it a challenge.
so he didn't come out for like 5 minutes, and I called up and I'm like, hey, thanks for the twine, except I need something to cut it with. He's like, oh, that's what I came up here to do. But then he got pulled into doing, some like changing the laundry or this, that, or whatever. He goes, and then I was like, why did I come up here to begin with? He was like, it was to get scissors. But most of the day it was so full, but it so flowed because we just all did our thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it all like, came together. So when we all allow it, it does come together. And that's that trust, right?
Right.
Even if it looks scattered, but it really is a more luscious, complex symphony that we allow to take place.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, going to the store, having
It's a different level of fulfillment.
yes. Well, and it's like an ease. It's like this level of ease that you're like, I didn't even have to think about that. You sort of think about it afterward, thinking, well, look at how beautifully that laid out.
Right. Yeah. Sandy says, yes, I definitely have become scattered many times while doing this. LOL. Judgment inevitably would show up while realizing I deserve joy and then questioning, haha, still a work in progress.
Right. Well, because we still have so many lifetimes and
Right.
experiences of that's being selfish, right?
Well, and it's working through the layers.
Hmm.
And you're not on the same layers today as you were yesterday.
Right.
And that's the important part, is that you're moving through the layers.
We're peeling them back.
Right.
We're opening them up like a rose. Or right now, like a peony, which my peonies are opening up in the
Yeah.
garden. So yes. So yeah, it's that letting it open up and flourish. Because think about that, as the bud of the flower opens up, right? It just folds out, right? And as we let go of things, that's what happens, is everything just folds out and the layers just sort of peel out. So really is for us to stay in a place where we do focus. So I just recommend, as I recommend for myself, the constant, there needs to be some, not needs, I don't like saying needs, but there, it helps to have a regular daily time of no anything and just to allow that quiet. Because like I
Right.
said, it was funny as I skipped that. Well, and I got some of it, like I said, doing the yard work. It was, so I did feel like I was in the flow. Well, I really was in the flow when I was doing all that anyway. But like this morning, sitting in there and getting that quiet time and allowing myself to expand through everything, it felt so, everything started feeling so little again.
Mhm. Right.
And so, oh yeah, no biggie, right? It's all fine. Because then when I expand out, then I see the whole picture and it's like, oh yeah, it's all good. Let it be.
Of course it's perfect.
Yeah. And it's a new game. It's a new game for us to live by, because it's not a passing phase. It's only something that's going to become bigger and bigger, is my understanding. So, and it's even more like, literally, I had somebody text me out of nowhere yesterday that I hadn't spoken to for a while, but they've been like there in my consciousness.
Right.
And I was in the middle of gardening, like I wasn't texting, like I was waiting because somebody was stopping by my house. So I was like checking my phone to see if it was that person. And so I was like, oh, and so I just, answered later, and so we had this little text conversation, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll catch up this at this point. And it was just a nice little, we just touched in the middle of all that and then moved on without saying, oh, like having to talk or I have to do this or blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, I've been thinking about you. How you doing? Da, 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 back and forth. All right, that's it. We're good. Yeah, we'll talk soon,
Right.
you know? And there's no attachment to, like, okay, we could run into each other at the store. We can run into each other in a dream, and there's
Uh,
no difference,
right. Right.
or meditation.
Hmm.
And so sometimes the ego wants to stop and go, "Oh, that's so lonely," but it's not. It's actually more connected than ever, because it's like, well, that means I don't have to lower myself down out of the tramway to make this physical connection, because we're already connected up there. So it's really, to this degree, that it's even a newer degree for me, even more so than it's been. So it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think part of what is coming for us is the conscious knowledge of how to utilize it to our advantage and creation.
Right. Now's our chance to practice.
And direct it. It's almost like it's almost like we're starting to read the Matrix.
Right.
That's really what it is. Because you know what it makes me think of, when he started to see the Matrix and you see all the numbers like flying down over. It's like, that's what all these little things, when we stop having to look at them so closely and let them flow through, right?
Mhm.
That's what they become. They become these little, like, say, letters or numbers or whatever. And you can direct the energy. Like, you can just direct the energy of like 50 things at once with a swoop of with a swoop of intention, and it's done.
Right. And the intention is all that it took. It didn't take babysitting the details.
Yes. And that feels so powerful. And I feel like that's what our next step is.
Right.
Oh, I can feel that all in here. It's like, oh, that's all yummy. So
So what do we need to focus on to get us to that place?
I was gonna say, so that's what our focus is today, I guess, is whatever there is for us so that we can get to that place, so that we remember that place, not get to, we remember how to be in that place always.
Right.
Right. Of managing the flow without managing the details. There's a big, that's a big difference right there. Yeah. Oh, that feels really good. I was like, okay.
I can get lost in that easily.
Yes. So yeah, so whatever that is that we could get, so we can manage the flow over the, beyond the details, and to stay simply in that place of transcendence, to allow that and allow us to remember how to manage our creation that way, because it's a different application of creation is what I'm getting. Yeah.
That feels good.
Yeah. So, let's go do that, shall we? All right. So let's take a deep breath and close our eyes. We all connect out in oneness with the intention to create of creation of us all being in that vibration where that's our truth and manifestation. All right.
Boy, I got lost out there.
Yep. It's like I came back, sort of came back once, and then I was like, no, we can still stay out here. So I came back. That was lovely. Oh, that just felt so yummy. I can't even explain that. It was like all of a sudden, it's almost like all the notes in the symphony just started to play together. It was like all of a sudden you heard the chord instead of all the individual notes, and it was like, yeah, that felt so freeing.
That was really, I felt the harmony.
Hmm.
Nice.
And I even had noise going on around here. And like, I have neighbors doing roof work, and I could hear all that. And it was funny because all of a sudden, all of that didn't matter. It was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Right.
All part of the whole thing, a buzz, right? Yeah, and then that just feels so free. It feels so, oh, it feels so good in the heart region.
Right. Right.
That's for us to remember every day. Ooh, every moment. Sandy says, wow, I got way out there. I was getting something about reminiscing.
Remembering this deep
Right.
within our consciousness
Yeah.
and the consciousness of ourselves. Then I heard myself saying, I remember how to do this.
Yes. 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 That's the chord, right? That's the harmony that you get.
Right.
Oh, yeah, because they are all little notes in themselves. It's like all full alignment,
Mm-hmm.
not only with yourself, but with everything around you and everything, Oh, that just feels so good.
Nice.
Well, this turned out to be a fabulous topic.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Michael. And I didn't see him today, so I hope he watches the replay.
I hope so too, because he's the one who asked for it, which turned out to be great because it's perfect and timely. All right, so everyone stay in that space. Come back and do that, meditation of remembering, allowing yourself to remember how to manage that flow and just to allow.
Right.
Oof, have a great week.
Right.
Thank you. And sign up for our Wonderland program, which starts next Tuesday on the 4th. First course is worthiness, and we are going to be hitting all of this stuff. It's going to be fabulous. Fabulous. Very excited.
Yes.
Look on the Center World page for more information, and we'll be posting more this week. So we'll see you guys soon. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah C. Gavignoni.
signing off on this week's Ascended World. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.